As an infant, I was diagnosed with hip dysplasia. For those of you who don't know, hip dysplasia is a medical term for when the hip socket isn't formed as a ball and socket joint as it's supposed to be. In my case, my left hip socket was formed flat, causing my hip joint to be completely dislocated. Following my diagnosis, I had to lay in traction with my legs suspended from the air every day for 3 weeks before having surgery. The purpose of this was to restabilize my hip as much as possible before surgery and to reduce my risk for arthritis as I got older. After 3 weeks of being in traction, I underwent a 6-hour-long reconstructive hip surgery. When I woke up from surgery on August 21st, 1999, everything about me felt numb, as if I were entering the world for the first time and had to readjust myself to belong to my surroundings. I remember looking around and seeing nothing but my parents' worried and exhausted faces looking back at me. I then looked down and saw that my body, from my toes to my chest, had been wrapped in casting, leaving only my head and arms free. Wires and tubes were intersecting all throughout my body, pushing into me different fluids and monitoring everything that defined me as being alive. In the bright ICU room, there was a subtle and steady beeping noise that made me feel sleepy. At this moment, I was too exhausted and confused to question why they had done this to me, so I fell back into a deep sleep, hoping that when I were to wake up, everything I had just experienced would be a dream. It wasn't a dream. I woke up again in that same spica cast, and I would do so every day for the next 12 weeks. For those 12 weeks, I had to army crawl or be carried everywhere. When I finally got my cast off, x-rays showed my bones were almost transparent and were fragile. It was strictly enforced upon my parents, by my surgeon, that I was to be watched at all times. I couldn't go near stairs or large objects. Not even my brother was allowed near me, because if something were to fall on me, or if I was to fall myself, I would be very likely to shatter the bones in my legs. I then started to gain strength back and begin my journey in physical therapy, which I attended religiously for years following my surgery. At age 4, my strength was almost equivalent to that of most 4-year-olds, and I was clear to play sports. Like most young kids, I was thrown into the game of soccer, and instantly I fell in love with the sport. With this sport, I got to play for many teams, both recreationally and competitively. I even had the opportunity to play in the 3v3 national championships against some of the most competitive teams at the time. At this age, playing soccer was just fun for me. I was good at it and I loved it. It wasn't until I got older and started playing more competitively and pushing my body to extreme limits that I realized how affected I was by my hip surgery. At age 14, as a freshman in high school, I decided I was going to try out for the girls' Division I soccer team. I was ignorant at the time of all the hard work and dedication playing for this team would really consist of. The tryouts were a week of double sessions, each session consisting of a ton of running in different forms, including hills, perimeters, sprints, and circuits. During the last exercise of the last session of tryouts, we were instructed to run one last mile as fast as we could. By this point, my entire body was drained, and I knew I would have to use every last bit of energy I had left to push myself to finish this mile. At about the halfway point, my hip locked and the bones in my left leg radiated with a pain I had never felt before. I collapsed in shock, unable to move. As I lay there in the 80-degree sun with just pure terror on my face, my coaches sprinted over to me along with the athletic trainer, who drove over in the green John Deere Gator. When they arrived, they started to overwhelm me with questions about the pain I felt and what exactly happened. As I described to them what happened, the trainer proceeded to move my leg around in contortional ways to see where my pain was radiating from. He instructed me to go back to the doctors and get it checked out because of my hip history. They wanted to make sure that everything was okay. I then went back to the hospital and had more x-rays taken of my hip to be certain that everything was how it should be. After following up with the doctor, it was requested for me to go back to physical therapy weekly and to sit out of soccer for at least 3 weeks until I was cleared by my doctor. Hearing that I had to sit out for a couple of weeks broke my heart. I had just made the team after working so hard to earn my position, and this is how I was paid. I had to miss the beginning of the season. After all, I just wanted to be able to play the sport that I loved without any restrictions. To this day, I still experience certain restrictions and occasional setbacks from my hip problems. When it's rainy and cold outside, my hip will ache, and sometimes just walking up the brutal hill of URI will enforce a slight pain and struggle for me to endure. but experiencing such pain and difficulties have shaped me into the persevering and strong young woman I am today.